Microsoft entered the console gaming arena on November 15, 2001 when it released the Xbox One. No, not that. The real Xbox One. This thing. The following year it brought its A-game to Japan, where the behemoth black box took the country by storm and was a roaring success, quickly becoming as commonly found in Japanese households as rice makers, kotatsu, and used panty vending machines.
Oh, excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but I never heard that before. Is this really true?
No.
Oh.
Unfortunately, despite its relative success in North America, Microsoft's original Xbox bombed horribly in Japan, selling under 500,000 units. The failure of the system can be made even more apparent when comparing this amount to the over 21 million PlayStation 2 systems sold by Sony in the same market. Ouch. The Xbox is known for its great Western developed games like Knights of the Old Republic, Forza, Morrowind, and of course Halo. But a lot of great exclusive games for the system came from Japan, like Dead or Alive 3, Breakdown, and pretty much anything put out by Sega after the demise of the Dreamcast. Smilebit, you were the greatest. Among these Japanese developed titles were two really great action game series that were steeped in Japanese history and mythology, Otogi and Ninja Gaiden. These games gained quite a bit of popularity domestically and worldwide, but there was another high-profile Xbox exclusive action game heavily influenced by Japanese history and mythology that most people never heard of, and that was the Microsoft Studios published Magatama. Developed by Team Breakout, a dev I hadn't heard of before previous to playing this game, Magatama takes place in feudal Japan in the midst of a war between the Yamato clan and the Japanese shogunate. In a move of desperation, the evil high priest of the Yamato, a man named Monkan, summons demons and other unreal creatures to crush the army of Ashikaga, shogun of Japan. The divine forces of Izumo send a brave warrior to aid the shogunate and defeat Monkan and his unearthly legion. This warrior is Shinato, the protagonist of the game, who wields two swords infused with the power of yin and yang and was trained since birth to slay gods. The higher beings of Izumo don't send him alone, however, as he is accompanied by Orochi, a legendary and mythical serpentine beast with the power to kill gods and gain their powers. Magatama is broken up into several stages, most of which will have to be revisited later in the game as you find different mirrors, which act as keys and look almost exactly like the Phoenix and Dragon mirrors from Shenmue. While the stages are basically still the same on their second playthrough, item placement changes and enemies become much stronger. Additionally, the stages are expanded, as areas that were previously inaccessible because of locked doors can be opened up with the correct mirror. After a stage is completed, you are ranked on things like the number of enemies killed and completion time, and are returned to a hub world. In this area, there are no items or opponents to deal with, and it's just a nice place to explore while moving between stages. Or at least it would be, if it wasn't for a companion character literally reminding you every 10 seconds of where the next mission takes place. This young girl is Kureha, who has been ordered to accompany Shinato by the shogunate to aid him because of her knowledge of the land. She looks like a badass ninja chick, and if you didn't know any better, you'd think her role was to aid you in battle. But no, she's just a dancer. Basically, her role is to brief you on your objectives before and after each stage, as well as making traversing the hub world an audible nightmare. Thankfully, you can fast travel to any stage and avoid a lot of the unpleasant noise. It should also be noted that the hub world is where you can save the game. Shinato controls much like the heroes in other third-person action games, where the left stick handles movement, the right stick controls the camera, the L trigger is used to guard, and holding down the right trigger locks onto enemies. The A button makes the character jump, and pressing it while locked onto an enemy results in some fancy dodge moves and a sweet backwards somersault. Only the B button is used to execute sword attacks, which can also be charged by holding down the button slightly longer before releasing, indicated by a glimmer that runs down each blade. Mixing regular and charged attacks is the only way to perform different combos, and it feels a bit awkward at first, but you'll get used to it in no time. I know it sounds really simple with this one button setup. I mean, even the king of all button mashers, the Dynasty Warriors / Musou series, has two dedicated buttons for attacking. But what sets Magatama apart from other similar action games comes in the form of the aforementioned Orochi companion. There's a meter above the player health gauge that fills up as sword attacks connect to enemies. Once this starts blinking red, it means you can press the X button to command Orochi to attack. As long as the meter is filled up enough, Orochi can be summoned to strike, even in the middle of a combo. It's a good idea to keep mashing that B button when enemies are around, as this meter is constantly draining and also depletes a bit each time Orochi is called into action. Orochi is used to activate switches and other items, and becomes a huge part of combat later in the game, when Shinato's swords start to become less effective in damaging enemies. This game's swordplay looks majestic and graceful enough on its own, but the addition of Orochi's sweeping attacks makes combat in Magatama truly a feast for the eyes. You can also enter first person mode to aim and shoot out Orochi like a projectile, but this is mainly used only to fetch items and reach faraway switches. One more thing that Orochi can do is a Frenzied Attack, basically a super attack, which is executed by pressing the Y button when a frenzy meter is filled up completely. The frenzy meter fills up as Orochi damages enemies, and when the move begins, time slows down and the beast will unleash a barrage of attacks for a short time. There are several different kinds of attacks you can perform, which are determined by how you customize Orochi. Yes, this game allows you to change Orochi's attributes, which can also add elemental properties to the beast and modify Shinato's sword attacks. New customization options can be found hidden in stages and by defeating certain boss characters, and you can test out the effects of different combinations in a practice mode. Unfortunately, you can't change Orochi's attributes in the middle of a stage, and all customization must be made in the hub world. Magatama is a fun, fast-paced action game with beautiful graphics and a truly stellar soundtrack. I'd say visually and audibly, it's one of the Xbox's best. Magatama starts off pretty easy, but it does get challenging later on. Most boss fights in Magatama are pretty straightforward, requiring pattern memorization and player skill to succeed. Take this one battle, where you must fight Kirin, the mythical creature that most alcoholics may recognize from their favorite Japanese beer. Anyway, you learn its attack patterns, find its weak point, and
you attack its weak point for massive damage.
But near the end of the game, Magatama suddenly becomes difficult to the point of being unfair and nearly impossible, thanks to a terrible decision to stray from this formula with two boss fights that play out almost like puzzles, which the game system just isn't a fit for. As a matter of principle, I try to fully complete all of the games I cover with Import Gaming for the win, but I'll be honest, I couldn't beat this one, because of one of these boss fights. Despite this frustrating aspect of the game, however, I still wholeheartedly recommend Magatama to Xbox and action game fans, as it's one of the better titles for the system and one of a handful of Japanese Xbox exclusives worth playing. I thought about not making this Magatama video since I couldn't complete it, but in the end, I decided to make it to show my good friend Jay Hicks, aka the Dolly Popka, a part of the history of the Xbox mostly unknown to gamers, Western or otherwise. Jay is the creator of Viridian Flashback, a series that showcases all the best and worst of the original Xbox. He's a good guy and makes great videos, so I hope you'll check out his channel and show this ex-bro some love. For those of you interested in more Japanese Xbox games, my coverage for the system doesn't end here. I also have one more game that I'd like to talk about, but that's gonna have to wait for quite some time.
Son of a bitch!
Anyway, as always, thank you for watching Import Gaming for the win. Take care.